Barbara, are you guys coming back in?
Yes, Sandra.
This is Ashley Aiken.
Director Ruiz.
All right.
Josh Kaplan's back on the line.
Okay. And do we have Director Pham or Director LaBelle on the line yet as well?
Yeah, Newton's here.
Okay. And Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia, are you on the line as well?
Yes.
Okay. Director LaBelle? Not quite yet. Director LaBelle, is that you?
Yes.
Chair Cervantes, we have everyone.
Thank you. All right, now we are ready to start the meeting again. The 32nd DAA Board of Directors considered the advice of the legal counsel on the items identified on the closed session portion of the agenda and has nothing further to report. Now we are going to go ahead and turn it over to Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Operational announcements and updates, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. We are continuing on a mostly work-at-home basis with only emergency essential staff on site. There have been lots of Zoom video conference meetings and phone calls as our staff continues to work together. Everyone is doing a great job of staying positive, productive, and connected. The OC Fair and Event Center remains closed to the public until further notice. We've been trying to do our part with our public closure to help the community, and spring has certainly sprung at Centennial Farm. Essential staff are continuing to care for the animals and harvest crops which are being donated to the OC Food Bank. Box loads of carrots, beets, onions, celery, cabbage, kale, and lots of varieties of lettuce have been harvested over the last several weeks and given to the OC Food Bank for distribution to those in need, and we are very, very happy to help. So maybe you heard on the news that love prevails in Orange County thanks to a new partnership between the the Orange County Clerk Recorder Hugh Wynn and his staff and the OC Fair and Event Center. The county has borrowed 3 of our admission ticket booths to conduct walk-up marriage license processing and marriage ceremonies. Maybe you saw the story in the news last week, which also featured an interview with our own director, Robert Ruiz, and you can see him being interviewed in the photo on the right. Following the news story, the county was absolutely slammed with calls. In fact, they received over 10,000 calls just in the last few days of couples who want to schedule appointments to get married. Staff is working with the county to loan another 3 ticket booths so true love can continue despite the pandemic. Who knew that people would want to get married in the middle of all of this, huh? On a more serious note, we wanted to provide the board and public with a status report on where we're at with our event cancellations to date. So far, 63 events have canceled due to COVID-19. That represents $3.74 million in lost revenue. 9 of those events have rescheduled for fourth quarter, and that represents over $1.1 million in projected regained revenue. So we're hoping that we'll be able to host those events in Q4, but obviously keeping a close eye on the situation. Further financials, for the 3 months ended March 31st, revenue is unfavorable to budget by $817,000, and that is due entirely to canceled events during the period. The better news is that we are favorable to budget on expenses by $1.8 million, and this is due to several factors. The cancellation of Imaginology and the expenses related to that. Certainly aggressive cost containment by staff has contributed to that. And then also the budget for our special projects, several special projects, and community engagement fund, that bucket of funds, was front-loaded into the budget in January. So those dollars were obviously not spent. Net proceeds at this point, at the end of March, are actually favorable to budget by $980,000, but obviously that won't last as we move into the second quarter. Total cash and cash equivalents is $54.7 million, representing a year-over-year increase of $2.6 million, or 5%. And that cash will certainly come in handy as we continue to realize the impact of our canceled events. Okay? And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we are now going to move over to the minutes. It's an action item. Board meeting held March 26, 2020. Do I have a motion?
I move the minutes
I'm
for
sorry.
the board meeting.
I'm sorry, Directors, please state your name before you speak for myself and for our transcriptionist.
Director LaBelle moves the minutes.
Ashley Aiken, second.
Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes,
Here.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonnery,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
and Director Pham.
Yes.
Thank you, Summer. We will now go over to matters of public comment. Public comment is allowed on issues not on the current agenda. However, no debate on by the board shall be permitted on such public comments, and no action will be taken on such public comment items at this time. As law requires formal public notice prior to any action on the docket items, speakers are requested to sign in prior to the start of the meeting and are limited to 3 minutes. Comments will be accepted on agenda items during the meeting. Speakers wishing to address the board on items on the agenda are requested to sign in prior to the start of the meeting and identify the agenda items on which you desire to address the board. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. I now turn over to Summer. Do we have public comments?
We do. Gibran Stout, if you're ready, go ahead.
Sorry, mute key's going to kill me. Okay, I just wanted to do a quick update on the Equestrian Center. First off, I would like to heartily thank Michelle and Terry for their extremely proactive and continuous communication with the equestrians during this difficult time. I can't even imagine all of the things that they have on their plate with everything that's going on, so it was greatly appreciated, and I really, really want to recognize them and let you know that they are awesome. And so I look forward to that kind of communication in the future. It was fantastic. At the facility, we have worked closely with staff to create protocol that is aligned with state and city orders. Our protocols are highly restrictive to ensure serious social distancing while still attending the needs of the equines. Only essential owners are allowed on the property, along with workers and caretakers. And they are only in limited numbers with an extensive schedule to ensure the flow of people, as you will, during the day. There's only essential exercise allowed for the welfare of the horses, with no recreational riding or lessons of any kind. Additionally, a great number of horses have been temporarily relocated to private facilities, which has made the social distancing on site extremely successful. So, hello?
Yes, thank you.
If anybody else on the line, please mute your phone.
The video cut off. Sorry.
And so I called,
Okay, I'm gonna do that last one again.
they're still in closed meeting and the video will come back.
Or should I don't know if you got it. But there's been a number of horses that have been temporarily.
So I'm just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. The
Uh-oh.
video's shooting back up. So,
Okay,
so I missed the beginning of it.
I don't know. Did you get all of that, Summer?
I did,
I mean, they haven't
Gibbon,
gotten to the
thank
item
you.
yet, but,
Okay.
one
They're
that
on
I
the meeting.
did hear was that like 60-something events have been canceled due to coronavirus.
Do we know who that speaker is on the line that's
I-
not muted, Summer?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
This is Vincent Fulmeyer. I'm on the line. I'm not the one who's not muted. What I can tell the person in the background is talking about is your Vimeo feed, your live feed is not functioning.
On their end.
Thank you. We'll look into it.
Gibbon, did you have anything else to add, or are you okay?
Nah, that was it. I just wanted to give an update and say that Michelle and Terry are awesome. They've been great, so.
Oh, okay. Reggie Mundicus, if you're ready to speak.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundicus. Thank you, Summer. As we go through this rather unusual time, we're doing well as far as communicating with each other and sticking together to get to our common goals. And I just wanted to make the board and some other members of the public aware that spreading, I'm going to call it rumors and not truthful information, isn't helpful at this time. And last week, I had someone come to me and ask why boarders were being told that they had to remove their horses from the equestrian center. And they wanted to know why staff had told them that. And it took a little while to explain to them that this was not true, that at no time did staff tell the boarders to remove the horses from the equestrian center, because someone who has some measure of authority, so to speak, had given this direction. It was not a staff member. It's not clear to me exactly who said that, but there should be, and it was not helpful. It was not helpful. So just, in this time, if you have questions, about what's allowed and not allowed, please go to staff or look online for the correct information before you start telling people that, for instance, they need to take the horse off the equestrian center because they've been told they have to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Tara Cervantes, that's it for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I will turn it over to Michelle. She will explain the majority of the consent calendar.
Yes, the majority of this month's consent calendar involve fair-related contracts, and a decision has not yet been made about the 2020 fair, but we wanted to get these contracts on the consent calendar so that we don't have a huge block of contracts to review next month or the month after, should the fair move on. So, certainly these contracts and agreements would not be executed should the fair be canceled.
All right, thank you. Okay, consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are operational matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the CEO. They will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the board of directors votes on that motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed separately and or removed from this section. Any members of the public who wishes to discuss consent calendar items should notify the chair of the board at the time requested and be recognized by invitation of the chair to address the board.
Chair Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle. I would like to pull all of the rental agreements. Not the concession rental, but the rental agreements.
Okay, thank you.
And then I would move the rest of the rest of the consent calendar.
This is
great,
the
thank
board
you.
member. This is board member Rubikova. Which rental agreements are you referring to, Doug? Because I'm looking at them now, but just it looks like that would be all of them for the most part.
Yeah, all of the rental agreements on the second item on the consent calendar is what I'd like to pull.
Director LaBelle, if I could ask a point of clarification. In Section B, those are rental agreements for year-round events. In Section D, those are commercial rental agreements associated with the fair. Are you pulling those in Section D for the fair merchants, or Section B, which are for year-round events?
The year-round events are the ones I'm requesting be pulled.
Okay.
The rest are fine for your earlier statement.
Okay, I would also like to add under the rental agreements, staff is pulling the second to the last agreement, R-095-20. Unfortunately, we have a duplicate contract number, so we need to pull that. It's just a clerical error, which we'll correct and we'll bring back at a later date.
Chair Cervantes, this is Chair Bonaris. I'd like to second Director Bell's motion.
Thank you, Director Bonaris. Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes, we do have three members of the public that would like to make public comment. Do we want to do that before a roll call?
Yes, please.
Gibran Stout, if you're ready to speak.
On the 9G item?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't clear. Is there going to be any sort of discussion at all about that information, or is it just part of the informational packet? It wasn't clear if there was discussion amongst board members on that item.
Only if one of them wishes to discuss.
Okay.
But if you'd like to make public comment on the item, you can.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay, I don't know how many people read the item, but I know that we're all polarized regarding the current world situation and the health crisis for the humans. The item is about similar protocols for equines, and I'd just like to add that there's been many outbreaks in the equine world, which I'm sure none of you have heard about. There's a vast and highly communicated national network of equines. I'm personally on an email notification list from the CDFA for any such illnesses that affect horses in the state of California. I also think it's fair to say that equestrians are far more cautious as a whole of their horses' welfare than perhaps even their own or their family's welfare. And whenever there is any sort of outbreak, they will often self-quarantine. Furthermore, horses require a lot of work to travel, and competition owners constantly practice social distancing already regularly for the safety and welfare of their animals. So you will never see congregating that you see with humans. Horses are required to have health certificates, which are checked at every single state line. So anybody traveling with a horse has to stop, walk, give the paperwork. The horses are checked. So I wanted to add that. Also, horses that come to the property for exhibitions should be considered as family group, and as such, we have slightly different look on that. The memo that you received from CDFA was geared more towards show events where you have horses coming from many different areas and regions, which would be similar to humans going to Target or Walmart. But we don't have those events currently on site. And all of the equines that come from off-site right now to attend events, like I said, are more exhibition-type animals and should be considered household. But all of this aside, I would really like to ask, recommend that when considering any sort of protocol for our own property and facility, when it comes to equines, that we collaborate with local equestrians as well as we take direction from the state veterinarian, but before we make protocol or we make decisions on our own area, we have discussions with local equestrians and local veterinarians before making decisions, because as we've all seen with the governor, he's looking out for the entire state, but each area, each county, each city has its own unique needs, and our equestrian opportunities being in the middle of the city have different challenges and perhaps some that are in different areas. So I would just really like to say that we continue the communication with the equestrians regarding these items.
And given that is time, thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, we have Reggie Mundicus, if you're ready to speak.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundicus. I'd like to thank CEO Richards for affirming that fair time contracts will not actually be executed and used until a decision is made if the 2020 OC Fair is going forward. I would also just like to add that I just checked the video feed for the meeting, and it's still not working. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Pullmeyer, if you're ready.
I am, and this is Vincent Pullmeyer. I wanted to actually speak to two things that were on the consent calendar. I'll speak to the first, which is the contract issue. I am not certain why Director LaBelle pulled those particular contracts, and I want to first off thank CEO Richards for being clear about that we're not executing any fair time contracts until a decision is made about whether we're going to have a fair or not. But I'd also like to encourage us to really take a good, solid look at all of the non-fair things. None of us know what the new none of us know when we're going to come, when or how we're going to be getting back to something like a new normal, and none of us really know what the new normal is going to be. So for things like contracts for elevator maintenance or repairs, or I don't have a problem with basic maintenance and stuff, but if we're making changes to things or investing large amounts of money and stuff, we really should be thinking about how would this be impacted if something changes substantially in a new normal. And then I also want to talk briefly on the consent calendar about a matter of interest, which is correspondence regarding the letter of understanding regarding emergency use for with the county. It's taken us, friends and neighbors of Orange County Fairgrounds, have been looking into this for a long time, and there was a draft agreement that was presented to the board, and I believe the board approved it, that called for approval by the county and called for, at least on the signature block, approval by the County Board of Supervisors. We've executed public record requests, both with the county and with the OC Animal Control, and there's no indication that this agreement was ever signed or approved by the county. And additionally, we executed public record requests with the 32nd, and they don't apparently have a copy of it. And this occurred back long before Michelle became CEO. So I really appreciate her efforts in trying to scrub the files to find this. But I just want to make sure that going forward, we're very clear on these sorts of agreements, especially ones which require third parties like the county to commit funds and commit requirements, that we follow through and make sure that we get them actually approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment on the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you, Summer.
Hey, Summer,
Yeah?
it's Jason. I know there's been reports of the stream down. For some reason, the link on our site has gotten corrupt, or there's been an issue. On Vimeo, it's still streaming direct. So there should be another link they can click on to go directly to the Vimeo site. I know we're working on trying to get that relinked right now. So if everybody can stand by, we'll work on that. But it is streaming and it's recording, so we're in good shape.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Jason.
Summer, can you please call for a vote?
Chair Cervantes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bon,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
and Director Pham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move to governance. A committee, ad hoc committee, liaison report,
Excuse me.
information item.
Chair Cervantes, I think we need to go back for discussion on the items that were pulled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Chair Cervantes and fellow directors, the reason why I pulled the standard rental agreements, and I think is...
All right, thank you. Next, we have the Storage, Parking, and Traffic Ad Hoc Committee, Director LaBelle and Director Bonner-Reese.
Thank you, Chair Cervantes. I'd like to report that Director Bonner-Reese and I met with Ken and Jason earlier this week by conference call to discuss the Wayfair or the Waysign program, the signage that is ultimately proposed to be installed at some future date to assist with the movement in and around the site. The report was completed by an outside consultant. It was very, very thorough, and Director Bonner-Reese and I have asked that that report be posted, which Ken is going to be doing today or tomorrow for review by board members and the public to begin the process of gathering information relative to this portion of the project. There are two other items on the agenda for today that I won't speak to. We can discuss those at the time the agenda item is up. And unless Director Bonner-Reese and or Ken have any further comments, that would conclude the committee report.
Mr. Director Bonner-Reese, I don't have any additional comments.
All right. Thank you, Director LaBelle.
Chair
Next,
Cervantes,
yes,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
We have two members of the public that would like to speak on the committee report.
Okay, perfect.
Reggie Mundekis, if you're ready.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundekis. I would like to thank Director Rubalcaba Garcia for moving the ball forward on the Board Governance Committee manual. Thank you for some quick action on that and keeping the game going on that. That's very important, so thank you for your efforts. On the issues of storage, parking, and capital projects, the public who is paying for these projects still does not have any idea what is being done because work is continuing while the property is closed to the public and money is continuing to be spent. We actually need to see documents showing what you're doing. We appreciate the verbal updates, but they really don't have a lot of useful information in them. And I'd like to thank Director LaBelle for publishing a consultant's report on the gate signage project, but quite frankly, we have no idea what that consultant's report is about, and why a consultant was hired or how much the consultant cost, and questions about how staff was addressing the numerous questions raised by the Planning Commission about the gate signage project were met by obstruction by staff, and they couldn't give good answers to them. Some of the issues raised at the Planning Commission in October included safety issues about the size of the signage along Arlington and how the signage would obstruct lines of sight at driveways and along the bike path. So on the signage project and other capital projects, we have a lot of questions which aren't getting answered, and we need to have more visibility in this. And we ask you to please open up these meetings to the public. We are paying for it, and we have to live with these projects. We'd also like to remind you that the staff who are managing these projects do not have California contractors licenses or California civil engineering licenses or construction experience outside of the fairgrounds. So that lack of training and relevant experience outside the fair industry raises a number of issues with the public. So thank you very much, and I'm done with my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Pohlmeyer, when you're ready.
Yeah, I am ready. This is Vincent Pohlmeyer, and I wanted to just echo the comments from Regina Mendicus, but it really drive home the part that what we seem to be doing, what seems to be happening here, and I'm going to be quite frank, is return to the bad old days via a form. Approximately 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, there were multiple meetings at which board members pledged to open up these subcommittees to the light of day, to the public light of day, and make them agendized meetings, and make them invite the public to them, and present notes and minutes and summaries of what detailed notes and minutes and summaries of what the committees were doing. And we had much discussion of this, and that sort of died along the way. And what we've gone back to is these two-person committees that operate in secret and in the dark. And frankly, when things pop up, after the fact, long after the fact, one of the things we get from certain staff members is we presented that to the board, and like, where? Well, at a committee meeting. That's not acceptable. The 32nd DAA is a public agency. It's a public organization. You guys, and you're doing a great job representing the public in terms of its of oversight. But you're not a substitute for public knowledge and public information. California is one of the few states that makes the right of the public to know what its government is doing, what its public agencies are doing, a constitutional right. It's in the first article of the California Constitution. So we need to figure out a way to stop having these committees operating intentionally or unintentionally behind the scenes and in secret. Again, intentionally or unintentionally. That's got to stop. And I encourage the board to figure out a way to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment on the committee.
Okay. Now we go to the next action item, which is consideration of and vote on whether or not to approve release of the entertainment marketing and booking services requested for proposal, RFP.
This is CEO Richards. I'm going to turn this presentation over to Ken Carnes and the entertainment team.
Good morning, everyone. Ken Carnes, Chief Operating Officer, OCFEC, and Dan Gaines, our Director of Entertainment, is on the phone with us to answer any questions. Item 10B, I'll just go through the background, turn it over for any questions, and again, Dan is available to answer any of our questions. So in the background, since the reopening in 2003, the Summer Concert Series at the Pacific Amphitheater has been one of the strongest revenue-generating components of the annual OCFEC season. From 2016 to 2019 alone, concerts at the Pacific Amphitheater have generated a net profit in excess of $14 million. The OC Fair and Event Center, like the majority of California fairs, has long contracted with talent bookers for entertainments at the annual OC Fair. Over the years, many of those responsibilities have been brought in-house, specifically for the hangar, the action sports arena, grounds entertainment, and various small stages. The Pacific Amphitheater, on the other hand, requires a dedicated full-time group working closely with the entertainment director to manage marketing and booking of the annual season. In addition to the amount of work required for this service, the district has relied upon the years of industry experience, an excellent reputation, and unique industry relationships that the selected bidder would provide. The cost of this contract is built into the season's pro forma, thus all costs related to this function are built into ticket prices. The current agreement expires on December 31st, 2020. Thus, staff is recommending the issuance of an RFP to secure entertainment marketing and booking services. Staff is prepared to issue the RFP on Thursday, April 23rd, with a proposed award announced on Friday, May 29th. The resulting agreement would be for 2 years with 3 one-year options to renew. The agreement would commence on January 1st, 2020. That's a summary of a bit about that item. Happy to take any questions, and again, Dan is available with us as well.
Are there any questions from the Board of Directors about this RFP?
Yes, Chair Cervantes, this is Director Lavelle. I have several questions and suggestions, I guess, relative to it. First of all, I want to compliment staff on putting together a very complete report in terms of the background on the success of the Pacific Amphitheater events. Obviously, as the exhibits show, we have steadily increased the revenues generated by the PAC-AMP events, which obviously are a very important part of not only the OCE Summer Fair, but events before and after that. I'm certainly very comfortable with the current firm, but I think at this point in time, it's always good to the marketplace and to see what other options might be available to the board, and the RFP provides us with that. In terms of general comments on the RFP, I would like to recommend that, and this is up to the chair, or actually up to the board and then the chair, the 2 members of the board of directors be involved in reviewing the RFP submittals and the scoring process. I think it would be most appropriate for the chair and vice chair to be that committee. So I'd like to see that added to the scoring part of the RFP. And then the RFP is directed specifically to the Pacific Amphitheater, which is fine. I think that somehow we need to have some language in there that indicates that it's an entire site that we are dealing with. Obviously, the hangar, the Action Sports Arena, staff has done a very good job of booking events into those facilities. but whoever we ultimately end up selecting for the next 2 or to 5 year process, I'd like to see that firm be very actively involved in working with the staff to enhance the hangar bookings in the action sports arena. As I looked at the last several years, the revenues have increased significantly. Some of the events are more successful than others, and I realize that there is a little bit of a trial and error in that regard, but I think we ought to always be focusing on trying to maximize the seating capacity, which is 8,200. Looks like close to 8,000 is probably our realistic maximum, and that should be a part of the ongoing effort. I would also like to have incorporated into the RFP language that would require the successful bidder, and the contract is to be effective January 1 of 2021. Within 90 days of that contract being commencing, that the successful bidder would provide a conceptual plan for the 2 to 5 years that they will be handling the booking activities, realizing that things obviously change on literally a daily basis in the entertainment world, but so that the board has some idea of where we're heading and what we're going to try to do to get there. With those suggested additions to the language in the RFP, I would move the staff recommendation on that. And obviously, if Michelle or Ken or Dan have any additional thoughts, why I would certainly want to hear those at this point in time.
Thank you, Director LaBelle. Any other comments? This is Director. Oh, Ashley.
Go ahead. So I have a couple questions. One, how will the RFP be distributed? How will it be marketed? And then two, and I'm mainly asking the marketing question for maximum exposure and so that we can get multiple RFPs from other vendors, just so we can see what's out there. The second question is what's the urgency and the timeline? Because the time frame seems pretty tight to me, April 23rd through May 29th. And that's all. Thank you.
This is Director Aiken, just so that I'll just piggyback on so we can answer all of our questions at once. I had a question about the relationship with the ticket service provider, because I know that contract comes up. What is the overlap between when we have a renewal, like the new RFP right now for the marketing, but then when are we going to be going out with required to go out with a new RFP for the ticket service provider? And I also wanted to, I like that we have the language in there about our sound requirements, but I wanted to just ask on page 13, under section B, oh shoot, sorry, there we go, where we talk about we book up to 10 shows that may proceed or follow the fair. Do we have anywhere in a settlement agreement about kind of what that, how do we define what is before or after the fair? And the reason I'm asking is if we are able to postpone the fair or if we are able to do something different as we navigate this fluid time, is there a tight time restriction about that we are committed to about how many shows we can put on outside a quote-unquote fair and what timeline we could put those productions on? Thank you.
I think
I think Ken has
So,
some
Michelle?
initial responses to some of the questions that have come up so far. So Ken, why don't you address those, and then we can take other questions if they come up.
Okay, thank you. I've done my best to try to capture the comments and questions, so I'm going to try to go down them best I can, and if I miss something, please
And
let
Ken, this is Natalie. I can't hear you very well, so I'm just letting you know from a taping perspective, it comes in and you're sort of at a distance.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to project and speak a little louder. So I'll do my best to go down the questions and comments made as it relates to the two members. The board can weigh in on that. Staff is open to whatever's required, and or whatever the wishes are. Language that indicates all events on page 18. It does include that note, Doug. So contractor shall be available to lend booking, marketing skills to other district entertainment venues, the hangar, for example, the Action Sports Arena, the hangar, as needed at no additional cost. So that is in there already. Dan may jump in here on the marketing piece on a 2 to 5 year plan within 90 days. Marketing is a key component. However, an overarching philosophy of marketing, for sure. Specific marketing comes to what type of acts we book and what each individual marketing plan for that attraction might be, and where we would and how we would market a country event, country and western act versus a comedian. So difficult to do a 2 to 5 year poignant plan because we don't know what those would be, but we do know that we engage in overall marketing where we target, whether it's through our social media, television, print, radio, hard target marketing, those types of things. How will it be distributed? Our contracting team and the entertainment team, well, it goes on our website, but there's also an industry list that's been collected and created over the years, 30 plus contractors on that list that it goes out to, so that's robust. Relationship with the ticket provider. So our ticket provider is currently Ticketmaster. I think we may just have, that RFP was done last year, so I'm best guess we're in year 2, so there'd be 4 years left of that Ticketmaster relationship. So no RFP pending. Sound covenants, it's in there. It's on, I think, referred to on page 13 or 14. So our decibel level requirements is in there. And the last item I had was defining what is before and what is after fair. There's a few things to consider. That the period of weather where that's conducive to holding events in the amphitheater, and there are some months in the winter months that aren't conducive. Standalone one-offs become a production cost that ROI may not be there if it's falls far off outside. Our strategy on how we built this, just 4 years in 2015, you know, as you can see on some of our reports that we use, that we were at 23 days, and we built it from the middle out so that we can do our best to take advantage of production and not have the one-offs. So tough to answer in these days, depending on what fair brings and what it looks like going forward when that is discussed on Monday, and then what ultimately we're able to do. But there is a time frame that we would work within. Again, the winter months are tougher to have because they're not as conducive to those type of events. But this is a year-round contract. Booking and marketing happens already. We are already looking at our internal team already looks forward to 2021, so it never really stops. So if the right opportunity were to occur for a concert outside what we've built, I think we're about 34 shows, we would look at that. I think I've covered now what was asked. Michelle's looking at me.
If you could just confirm the sound monitoring guidelines would apply no matter what time of year it was.
They do apply. However, non-fair, there is a 5 dBA decline in the sound. So it goes from 55 down to 50 dBA on non-fair related events. And Dan, if I have misspoke or misrepresented or made a mistake, I certainly appreciate you chiming in for clarity.
Yeah, this is Dan Gaines speaking. First of all, I want to commend all of you for your memory, because that was a lot of information, and I'm going to do my best to answer what I can. Please give me a shout if I don't respond to something directly. I would say, in terms of the board members taking part in the scoring process, I would only offer up that there is a certain level of knowledge and expertise in the given areas that should be considered when scoring these RFPs. As an example, when Jerry Eldridge puts out an RFP for something having to do with construction, I don't sit on that because I don't have that level of knowledge to where I can accurately score one of his RFPs. So I would just ask that be a consideration, that we gather together the people internally that have a working knowledge of what the responses mean in real world, and so I think that should be something that is taken into consideration. The multi-year marketing plan, part of the expertise of this person is to be able to address marketing in a world that is perpetually in flux. Every show is different. Every response by the public to the shows is different. To try to put that into a concise format would be challenging, to say the least, and I think it would be ever-changing. But I would also offer up that I think the format is, in general terms, and as best we can do, is really spelled out in the RFP. So if using that as a guideline, something can be developed, and we will certainly work on that. I think Director Aiken had talked about the possibility of programming post-fair. Yes, it would depend on the number of performances that we could bundle. The greatest expense that we incur in the amphitheater series is the production. It's the biggest cost, the labor that goes along with applying the production. If we only have one or two shows that through which we can amortize that cost, the economics just aren't there. So we've got a number of shows in series. It makes sense because we don't own the equipment. We rent it out. I would also add that the booking process for these shows, we're really in an 18-month cycle. We have confirmed shows for 2021 now in April. That's how far out ahead we're working on these things. So the idea of having performances in August, September, October would require that we be able to secure talent that is available, that's routed and willing to work in this current environment. So could it be done? Yes. There are a lot of things that work against it, I will say. And, gosh, I think that's it. Please let me know if there's anything else that I can add.
Yeah, thank you. This is Director Aiken. I understand the one-off and how expensive production is, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about this October. My question was, is there a legal reason why we are including that we book up to 10 shows that may precede or follow the fair? I was just curious about where that number came from.
No, certainly no legal reason. I think when we first stepped outside the bounds of the fair, we wanted to treat our community with the utmost respect and make sure that we were remaining compliant, that we were not interfering with their daily lives by adding concerts, and the response that we got was very positive. And as we had success with 2 or 3 each year, we've tried to step that out a little bit further to make sure that we were maintaining the relationship and our good faith. And so I think we got to 10 at most recent projections and budgeting, and that's really how that came about. It wasn't a legal matter.
Okay. I think we might want to just consider whether it's, we are very good about being respectful of our neighbors, but I'm not sure it makes sense that put self-imposed limitations in this type of contract. My other comment would just be if we could, we might want to think, I'd like to hear the other board members' opinion about trying to put the timeline for the ticket service provider and the marketing and kind of everything that are a couple of our RFPs that go around the Pacific Amphitheater, generally around the same time, so that we're looking at it holistically. Because right now we're talking about marketing, but last year we were talking about who we want to be our ticket service provider, and I think they're related, and it's easier to see how we are getting the best deals, how we can do this in the most cost-efficient manner if we're doing it a little bit closer in the same time. So maybe adjusting the time period so that they expire at least in the same year.
This is Director LaBelle. I certainly agree with Ashley's comment. I think it's important that we try to look at this whole process in its totality, so to the extent that we can work on a go-forward basis to have all of these things occur in a uniform and a consistent manner, I think makes a lot of sense. And let me speak for a minute to my specific recommendation to have several board members serve on the review committee. I do respect Dan's comments. My thoughts are kind of several-fold as to why I believe it is important to do that. First of all, this is a very, very major, significant decision that is going to be made. The detail that is contained within the RFP asks some very specific questions. I think it's very all-encompassing. I think staff did a very good job on it. Having another set of eyes and ears to look at that, there's certainly going to be a lot of detailed information that's going to be submitted or required by the RFP, and to have 2 members of the board actively involved in that process, I think is extremely important. And for my last reason is ultimately it is the responsibility and the obligation of the 9-member district board to approve that contract. And the more involvement we can have in that process leading up to its final decision is I think very critical to getting an operator that the board feels very comfortable with. So That's my reasoning for suggesting or recommending that several board members be on the review committee.
And I just wanted to, this is Board Member Rubikava, I wanted to add on to Doug's very eloquently stated concern and request for this RFP process. You know, I hear that's not my phone. I understand what your concerns about having board members who are not, who one might deem qualified to review these, but many board members do sit on other committees who are part of an RFP process, including many of the contracts through the facilities committee. We may not be experts in this area, but many of us are very well versed with various contracts. Ashley brought up a couple of very important things that are concerning about this contract as it is, or the RFP. So I think that although there might be hesitation to have somebody who would not be completely deemed as qualified through, you know, an entertainment process, but I think it is definitely something needed, and I fully support the recommendation made by a board member related to this RFP process.
And this is Michelle speaking. We would have absolutely no problem with the board chair and vice chair or any two board members serving on the scoring panel. Certainly want to recognize Dan's comments, but I agree that there's enough collective knowledge on the board that could be added to any scoring panel. So we would appreciate and welcome that involvement. Just kind of a procedural add-on, and this is per legal counsel, is that any board member that participates in the scoring would have to excuse themselves from voting on the resulting contract, to approve the resulting contract. And Josh, I'll throw it to you if you want to add anything. But that's my understanding of what that procedure requires.
Yeah, and so the only detail that I would add is we have had some challenges involving other state agencies where a member of the commission or board was on the scoring panel for an RFP, and if there's some sort of resulting bid protest with an allegation that somehow one or more members of the scoring panel are biased against a losing bidder, the best way for the board to insulate itself from some claim that the vote on the contract itself was also biased would be for any board member that participates on the scoring panel to exclude himself or herself from the actual vote. And that way, in the event we're managing a bid protest through a writ proceeding, we only would really need to defend at the outset the bid scoring process itself and not the board vote. So our office has generally made the recommendation to agencies that if a board member or commissioner sits on the scoring panel of a contract, that he or she excuse him or herself from deliberations and vote on the contract itself.
So other than that, we would welcome the involvement of board members on this scoring panel. There have been board members on other RFP scoring panels as well. So happy to do that. That doesn't need to be included in writing in the RFP, but we'll have an understanding that we'll have board involvement on the scoring process.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. This is Director Cervantes. Again, I want to thank Director LaBelle and Director Rubalcaba Garcia, and I are happy to add our names.
Very good. We can go ahead and make any of the other adjustments to the RFP unless there are any other questions or comments related to it. And if not, Summer,
do we have public comments?
We do. We have one member of the public that would like to speak. Vincent, when you're ready.
Yes, this is Vincent Molnar. I wanted to speak to this on a couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to have a general comment that this seems, I don't know what the time frame is. It seems rather rushed. And given the uncertainty that's going on in the world where we don't know how soon we're going to be returning, or if ever we're going to be returning back to sort of mass events, I would suggest, I just have a general suggestion, that we should probably put in the RFP some sort of language about maybe having to go back to them before the contract is let, but after the initial round of proposals come in, that we may have to go back to the people submitting proposals to get additional information or information of another type, to the extent we can legally do that. I also wanted to make a suggestion. I wanted to react to Director Aitken's suggestion and just remind the board of a bit of history and remind everybody of a bit of history. You can certainly take the limitation of 10 concerts out, but I want to remind the board that every single time over the last 25 years, there's been an attempt to greatly expand events, the number and the calendar spread of events at the Pacific Amphitheater. It's ended up in front of a judge in OC Superior Court. So be very, what the staff has done, what the staff has done in slowly spreading this out and seeking public input and making sure that those sound limits are in the agreement is good, and I applaud them for that, and I think they've done a great job. But just don't, make sure that you're involving the public before you push any further. And then I finally had a question, and this is more of a question for Josh. If we're only down to 7 board members and 3 of them are going to sit on the scoring, are going to participate in the scoring, that only leaves 4 people who can approve. Do I understand that math correctly, and does that create any legal issues? So with that, I'll end my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for public comment, Chair Cervantes.
This is Michelle. I would just want to clarify for the public who just spoke, is the idea would be to involve 2 board members, leaving 5 to vote. So it would be the board chair and the vice chair to serve on the panel.
Chair Cervantes,
Director Aiken, just as a point of clarification, we're not putting that in the RFP.
That's correct.
Something that we can get further legal direction on at a later time, but that won't impact what's going on in this contract.
That's correct.
Chair Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle again.
Yes.
A couple of questions. Mr. Pallmeyer does raise a very important point that none of us know where we're going to be at a year from now or 6 months from now. And I think there should be some language in the somewhere within the RFP that, of course, everybody knows what's going on out there, but articulates the fact that COVID-19 and the impact of that and mass gatherings, et cetera, may have an impact, and we may be requesting additional information as more clarity comes forth in the next 60 to 90 to 120 days. Director Rubalcaba, Vice Chair Rubalcaba, made the earlier comment about the time frame. It is quite ambitious. I certainly would have no problem in adding another 3 or 4 weeks to the review process. Certainly we're going to get more clarity as time goes forward. So with that, I would move the RFP with the suggested language as stated, and with the clear intent, well, it doesn't have to be in the RFP, but with the clear intent that 2 members of the board, the chair and vice chair, will serve on the review committee when the RFP's submittals are scored. That would be my motion.
And staff can certainly...
Second. I'm sorry, any more comments?
This is Michelle. I just wanted to follow up on Director LaBelle's suggestion, which I think is a good one, that staff will work with the Attorney General's office to add that COVID-19 related item to the RFP.
Chair Cervantes.
Okay.
Director Bonner-Reed.
I'm not clear.
I'd like to
Go ahead,
second
Director Bonner-Reed.
I'd like to second Director LaBelle's motion.
Okay, great, thank you.
Not clear on the motion.
Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes,
Yes?
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonner-Reed,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
and Director Pham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Summer. The next item is an action item, consideration of and vote on a policy for the use of e-signatures.
Okay, this is Michelle. The use of electronic signatures for contracts and agreements is permitted by the California Department of General Services and is actually encouraged. However, it is pursuant to the development and approval of a policy by the Board of Directors for a particular state agency. Our current remote work situation due to the COVID-19 pandemic has created the need for the use of e-signatures for a variety of administrative forms, agreements, and contracts. And frankly, we should have been using this all along to streamline our processes. So use of e-signatures would greatly streamline administrative processes and avoid the need for employees to go into the office to get wet signatures. The attached policy developed through the Attorney General's office is presented for the board's consideration, and that draft policy was in your packets. Staff has reviewed this, and it's very straightforward. We would be using the digital signature method. We're researching several options right now, but it has become quite critical in our remote working situation, and frankly one that we would want to continue in order to streamline processes once we're able to come back to work together again. So happy to take any questions or comments.
If we have no questions or comments, I'd like to call for a vote.
This is Director Ruiz. I'd like to make the motion to approve the e-signature. The use of
Director Aiken, second.
Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes,
Yes?
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonner-Reed,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
and Director Pham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Summer. The next one is another action item, and this is consideration of and vote on whether or not to approve the letter of understanding, LOU, and rental agreement with the City of Costa Mesa for placement of emergency use trailers at OC Fair and Event Center.
Okay, this is Michelle. As most of you know, the City of Costa Mesa has requested the use of space to place 10 camping trailers given to the city by the state of California for potential emergency housing if needed for unsheltered residents who may have risk factors that make them very vulnerable to COVID-19. It is not yet known if or when those trailers may be used by the city, but we did want to have them staged and ready for use if needed. What is before the board is a $0 rental agreement and an accompanying letter of understanding establishing the guidelines for use of the property by the City of Costa Mesa, including required insurance, state fire marshal requirements, security measures, and reimbursement of any out-of-pocket expenses. So happy to take any questions or comments about that rental agreement and attached LOU.
Michelle, this is Ashley Aiken. Can you just, are we in contact, I guess it would be with Ms. Susan Price over at the City of Costa Mesa as to when they're going to be using these for people that are living on the streets? And is there some type of restriction on these trailers that they have to be residents of Costa Mesa currently, or can they be used by people that are in other cities that are vulnerable and at risk for COVID-19?
I am in frequent contact with Susan Price, who is the Assistant City Manager for Costa Mesa, and this is a project that she has been directing from the very beginning. Those trailers, we do not have specific information from the city about if or when they will be used. Currently, the most vulnerable of that population are being housed in hotels, and the city is being reimbursed for the cost of those hotels. The city feels like that is, at the moment, the safest place for those vulnerable members of that community. However, if that situation should change and those hotel rooms are no longer available or the city can no longer be reimbursed for them, that would be the time that the city would turn to us for use of those trailers. The trailers were given to the City of Costa Mesa by the state, so I don't have a specific answer about whether the city would be willing to have those utilized by unsheltered people from other parts of the county, but I can certainly follow up on that and see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, if there's a contract between the state of California and the City of Costa Mesa, I would like to look at that, if you could see if we could get our hands on that. And do we have, who drafted Josh, did you draft the letter of understanding about the use of the property? And if so, can you just touch briefly on any indemnity provisions that are in that in case of use and in case of damage, injury, loss occurring on the property?
Yes, so I did not draft it from whole cloth. I received a draft from the city. I then went through, reviewed, and made some changes to it. And so, yes, I can walk through the letter of understanding, which is Exhibit A to the rental agreement, and highlight some of the pieces that relate specifically to the concern, Director Aiken, regarding indemnification and potential liability damage. And so I would point the board first to Item 5 under the LOU, which starts at page 2, which discusses the City of Costa Mesa responsibilities. And again, that essentially provides all the requirements the city has to meet. And so for specifically Subdivision G, which requires that the City of Costa Mesa carry the necessary insurance to cover any losses that result from its use of the district's property, including naming the OCFEC Event Center as an additional insured so that the 32nd DA is also covered under the city's insurance policy. Subdivision H, which requires a reimbursement to the fairgrounds for any out-of-pocket expenses, and that we intentionally left that term very broad. So any penny spent by the fairgrounds that relates to the use of its property, the city would be required to pay that back. Following that, subparagraph I would require the city to repair or replace any property, fixtures, or facilities that are damaged or impacted during the city's use of the fairgrounds property. There is also indemnification language at paragraph 8, which is very broad in nature, which I would point out, by the way, would require the city to indemnify the fairgrounds regardless of responsibility of negligence. And I point out that language because a lot of times if there's an injury on the property, you might be able to attribute that injury to the negligence of two or more parties. But this language specifically says if there's some injury resulting from the city's use, but the district is partially negligent for that injury, this language would require the city to make the fairgrounds entirely whole. And so even under circumstances where the fairgrounds or its staff were negligent. And so that's always important for us to include that language in these indemnification provisions, and so that language is also here. So those would be the kind of the highlights that I would point out that at least speak to your question, Director Aiken, on indemnification risk and insurance.
Yes, thank you. I had written down page 3, but I didn't write down which section is the indemnification paragraph. But I just wanted to make sure that, because we didn't draft it, that you were comfortable that it is in compliance with anything we need to do with state law. And just kind of for the record, just point out that we've done our due diligence in protecting our assets. Thank you.
Yes, in fact, paragraph 8 is our language. The indemnification language is our language.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, no further comments. Do we have a motion?
Sandra, is it possible to, or Chair Cervantes, is it possible to take public comment before we vote?
Absolutely. We can certainly do that. Let's do it.
We didn't have any members of the public identify that they'd like to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you.
So we do not.
Okay.
Oh, this is Doug Lavelle. I would move the staff recommendation.
I second.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second. This is Natalie Rubacava.
Thank you. Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubacava Garcia?
Yes.
Director Ruiz?
Yes?
Director Bonaris?
Yes.
Director Aiken?
Yes.
Director LaBelle?
Yes.
And Director Pham?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Summer. The next one is also an action item, consideration of and vote on the operational expenditure for renting the Costa Mesa High School and Davis High School parking lots for the 2020 or 2021 OC Fair.
This is Michelle. I'll turn it over to Ken and his team in a moment, but this item, they have been in discussions with the Newport Mesa Unified School District and the high school and Davis School representatives for an overarching agreement allowing us the use of the parking lots during fair time. So, Ken, I'll turn that over to you.
It's Ken Carnes speaking now. This one is a little challenging and maybe a little convoluted given the circumstances. So depending the outcome of Monday's meeting, 2020 may be moot, but maybe we look at this as conceptual, the concept of our requirements. So it's obviously, if there's no need for 2020, that would not occur. And again, for 2021, not knowing what we would need, depending on what is produced and developed and what a fair may look like. Again, I would say that this is, we would now say, if required and when budgeted, coming forward in 2021. But the concept is, in an effort to alleviate annual fair-related vehicular traffic and parking issues and to reduce or limit impact on the local community, additional off-site parking areas are needed. That's not news. High volume of guests and employee and parking, vehicular parking is required. We've had, as Michelle said, we've had discussions with Costa Mesa High School and Newport Unified School District. about the properties. We've put some budgets together and some concepts of how we would move the chess pieces around the board. There's a budget cost of $210,000 for the Costa Mesa High School. We would have some related parking and security labor. We think it's the right thing to do is to put in a crosswalk, and we'd have some related rental equipment. Davis Magnet School is key to our back-of-house operations. So we've added some budget money there with an estimate total of $372,000. In looking at the overall strategy in this parking model, we could recoup some costs by having a paid parking model at Orange Coast College. And if we were able to park 1,100 cars per day at $10 a car, we could offset our costs at approximately $253,000. Again, this is conceptual and a budget at this point. I guess you'd be approving us to move forward with the concepts and the discussions and bring back whatever agreements and contracts that would go on the consent calendar. I have Nick Buffa, our Director of Security and Traffic, who's head up a lot of these initiatives. He's on the call to also answer any questions. I'll put it back to the board if there's any questions of staff.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
Chair Cervantes, I have two members of the public that would like to speak if the board doesn't have any comments.
Please call for
Reggie.
Please call the names.
Reggie Mundicus, when you're ready.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundicus, and I'd like to thank staff for bringing forward this item to formalize the use of parking lots at Costa Mesa High School, Davis Magnet School, and Orange Coast College, and to consolidate those parking lots under the management of the OC Fair. While the Davis parking lots, the Costa Mesa High School lots, and OCC have been used by various organizations, including the public, to park during the fair, it hasn't been done so in an organized, efficient manner. So we're looking forward to the consolidation of these lots into a comprehensive parking plan. So the use of these lots does not represent any new parking for the fair, but just a change in management to make it more efficient and effective. So we also look forward to staff finding other parking resources for use by the OC Fair, including off-site parking in other communities, which would include shuttle service. That parking may be paid or unpaid by the patrons, and that can be discussed or decided later. One other resource that staff may want to look at for off-site parking with shuttle service is the parking lots at Golden West College and Huntington Beach, which are also owned and operated by the Coast Community College District, which operates Orange Coast College. So thank you for bringing this forward, and we look forward to the changes. Thank you.
Vincent Polmeyer, when you're ready.
Yes, I am. This is Vince Polmeyer. I also wanted to say I think it's a good idea that these parking lots, which are operated by the school district and by OCC, that are very near to the fair, it makes sense to, and it makes good, solid logistics sense to coordinate them with fair parking and for example, the use of the Davis School stuff for back of office operations makes a lot of sense. But I just wanted to reiterate something that Reggie Mendicus just said, which is the fact these were referred to as new parking. They're not new. They've been used for fair parking for years. First time I ever went to the OC Fair, I parked at OCC, and so this is not. We're not adding to the available parking. This is not going to decrease traffic in any way. This is just a change in who's operating these lots. But it is going to have a big impact, negative impact on traffic in one potential way. and that is, if you start charging for parking at OCC, and I think you should, the same way you do at the fairgrounds, that has been basically nearby free parking for a long number of years, or less than OC fair parking. And what that's going to do is that's going to drive traffic. That's going to drive people who are too cheap to pay for parking into the adjoining neighborhoods. And so I think as part of this plan, you've got to bring in Costa Mesa Police and work with the neighboring communities to make sure that there are traffic enforcement mechanisms in place to make sure that your expansion of and integration of that parking into your overall parking plan and converting it to paid parking doesn't negatively affect the neighboring community. And I just encourage you to include that in your planning going forward. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Vincent.
you. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Summer. Is there a motion?
Chair Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle. I would just add that this has been reviewed with the committee, Director Bonarise and myself, and I would thank staff for their diligent efforts to put this together, and I would move that it be approved in concept as Director, or as VP Carnes indicated, not knowing whether it will relate to 2020 or 2021, and move forward with developing the enabling agreements with the respective agencies. So that would be my motion.
Director Reese, I second the motion.
Okay. Summer, will you call for a vote?
Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia?
Yes.
Director Ruiz?
Yes.
Director Bonarise?
Yes.
Director Aiken?
Yes.
Director LaBelle?
Yes.
And Director Pham?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item is an information item, and this is a presentation on the concept for the expansion of the Green Gate entry, along with operational and capital expenditures.
Hello again.
Joe or Ken?
Hello again, Ken Carnes talking, and we couldn't agree more with the public and Mr. Palmieri that everything affects everything, and it's a very intricate, challenging plan as opportunities and concepts come together, and one thing affects the next and affects the next. So, yeah, there isn't one solution, and we recognize that. There are some improved traffic flows that we believe will have a positive effect as it relates to how we would manage Costa Mesa High School. So with that, this next piece is part of that puzzle. Green Gate is impacted. It's our most impacted gate. We have time-lapse videos showing, and sorry, I'll back up. Jason Jacobson, our Director of Technology, who has been instrumental in putting this together, and again, worked with the committee. If our technology is working, we have a video that he's going to walk us through, but there's some non-fair positive impacts of this concept, and that is how we load and unload year-round for year-round events. The second positive impact is how we could then load and move out the fair with creating this roadway. And thirdly, and most important, the expansion of Green Gate to go from the number of mags we currently have and expand them to 10 scanning points. That would make an improvement on the amount of traffic that gets held up at Green Gate. So we walked through this concept. We put together a capital budget for the construction. We put an operational budget together. So with us answering any questions, we would take this concept and move forward and develop it into our 2021 operating and capital, and try to get the work done in advance of the 2021 fair. Basically, the concept would be that in the afternoons, we can realign staff, open up more lines, more magnetometers, more scanning points to more effectively move our customer onto our property. There's a map on the screen now showing a new roadway, and then we have a map that would show the tent, I believe, Jason. And again, Jason's put a lot of time into this, and if I've managed to bumble it, which it sounds like I have as I'm droning on here, Jason can articulate more effectively. But the concept is to expand Greengate for our year-round operations, the load in and load out of the fair, and the primary goal to expand the number of magnetometers and scan points for Greengate. And there's a capital and operating budget attached. Capital budget of $194,150 and an operating impact of $58,000.
This is Michelle. Again, this is just an information item, but it's a concept that the team has been working on to improve guest amenity, particularly at Greengate. We try to get people in as quickly as possible, but as you could see from the time-lapse video, that crowd swells quite a bit in the afternoon, and it really diminishes the experience for the guest. So this concept would allow for an additional entry into Greengate that could be put in place in the afternoon when that crowd builds, so that we can get them in much more efficiently and much more quickly and improve that experience at the gate. So really no vote here, but just wanted to inform the board of this project. Obviously, we would come back later with a fine-tuned proposal and incorporate this into the capital budget for 2021 when we have a better idea on costs. But this is the initial concept, and we're happy to take any questions or comments from the board.
Hello, this is Director Cervantes. What I'd like to go ahead and do is have Summer please call the names for public comment, and then we'll go ahead and get back to the board after that.
Okay. Reggie Mundicus, when you're ready.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundicus. I'd like to thank staff for bringing forward this project. The idea of bringing forward a project in the conceptual stage to get input from the staff, from the board, the public is a great idea, and we would like to see this practice continue going forward. As someone who uses the Greengate to get into the fair, I understand the need for this project and support it. As we move through the current health crisis, there may be changes made to this project as we learn more about what's needed to keep the public safe, such as the inclusion of hand washing stations or places where people's temperatures can be taken before allowing them into the facility, or other changes. In the interest of also bringing forward other projects which are needed, which need advanced planning, both Baja Blues and Centennial Farm Complex do not currently have fire sprinklers and a fire alarm system. So if these structures catch fire, even when there are people and animals in them, there is no way to quickly catch the fire and call the fire department before there really is a large emergency. So to protect both human and animal lives, I request that staff bring forward plans for placing fire sprinklers and a fire alarm system into both Baja Blues and Centennial Farm Complex. And it may not be widely known by the board, but there are a number of gates and parking lot locations which use portable lights powered by diesel generators to provide enough lighting for the parking people to do their jobs during evening events. And I request that staff bring forward plans to improve the lighting to end the use of portable lights powered by diesel generators in order to both better manage environmental costs and to put in the correct lighting which is needed for people to safely do their jobs. And I can provide the backup for that need, as Baker Rentals makes a lot of money off of us for renting those portable lights powered by diesel generators. So thank you very much, and that's the end of my comment.
Thank you, Reggie.
Thank you. Vincent Pohlmeyer, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm ready. Yeah, this is Vincent Pohlmeyer. I wanted to echo part of that comment, which is I really want to thank the staff. I want to thank Ken, and I want to thank Jason for bringing this forward at the conceptual stage. This whole process of bringing conceptual designs forward and airing them out to the board and to the public so that we can see what's going forward and what, well in advance of seeing it as a line item with 5 or 7 words at the annual budget meeting at the end of the year is a great thing. Now, given that, and by the way, kudos on great work. Unfortunately, I think the reality is that much of this design is moot. The pictures in the video that were shown clearly demonstrate that something needs to be done here. But the reality is that we don't know what the future, and I keep coming back to this, we don't know what the new normal is going to be. We don't know, it's very likely that we are never going to return to a situation where we'll be allowed to have crowds and lines pressing in like you see in the video. This expanding of Green Gate may just, this may be the tip of the iceberg of what we need to do. For example, we may need to put in facilities for doing infrared, taking the temperature of every single person who comes in. We may need to have isolation booths for separating people. We may need to have separate lines and mechanisms. We may be required to have mechanisms in place to enforce 6-foot separation. I have no idea when mass gatherings are allowed again. And frankly, I'm going to tell you, I am of the feeling that it's unlikely we're going to see mass gatherings in 2020, period. I'm not sure that we'll see mass gatherings, we'll be able to see mass gatherings in the first half of 2021. But hopefully I'm wrong. But the reality is that I think there's so much uncertainty in front of us that I like the idea of the planning, but I think we just have to recognize that it may need to shift on a dime when we know what the direction is coming from the state. And we really probably shouldn't be spending at any point. I know this isn't until 2021, but we shouldn't be spending any money on these sorts of things until we know what the new normal is going to look like, or at least have a better picture. Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you, Vin. Thank you. That's it for public comment on this item, Chair Cervantes.
Thank you, Summer. All
Chair
right, we're
Cervantes,
back to the Board of Directors.
Chair Cervantes,
Go ahead.
This is Director LaBelle. I would like to ditto Mr. Pohlmeyer's comments. I think I agree with him in totality. It's hard to envision what that new normal is going to be. I think it's good to keep planning things and looking at things, but I think we need to be very careful to not get too far down the road until we know what the new norm is going to be. And hopefully we'll know sooner rather than later, and it'll hopefully be better sooner rather than later. Be my comments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. I was going to call you Dr. LaBelle, Director LaBelle. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if we don't have any comments, we will go ahead and move over to the next item, which is an action item. And this is a consideration of and vote on communications protocols with Attorney General's office staff.
And this is Michelle Richards. I'll go ahead and turn that over to Natalie, Director Rubalcava.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cervantes, and thank you, Michelle. Yeah, the reason for this item is mainly to ensure the use of our Attorney General's office staff, which includes Josh Kaplan, and looking at properly managing legal expenses and also streamlining communication between 32nd DAA staff and the Attorney General's office. So with this item, I'd like to open it up for discussion with the other board members. One of the things that I am proposing is that we review the timesheets that we receive from the AG's office, and I'm not sure if that comes monthly or if it's bi-monthly or whatever the frequency is, but before they're paid, it actually is reviewed and signed by a member of the board of directors. Since the services provided by the AG's office are specifically for the board of directors and the 32nd DAA, I think it's instrumental that we're aware of how services are being utilized, but then also just to make sure that we're, mainly effectively using and efficiently using Josh Kaplan services or anybody from the AG's office by limiting that communication between the fair staff to the CEO and other board of directors. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
This is Director Cervantes. I totally agree with you, Director Rubalcava Garcia.
This is Director Aiken. I really like the idea of having somebody just oversee and keep track of legal work and legal expenses and making sure that we are consistent with what we've budgeted. I would be happy to help with that if this gets approved.
Chair Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle. First of all, I am in total support of the recommendation that when legal counsel is sought by the staff, and I think every staff member should have the ability to go up the chain of command and go through the CEO to get that question answered. I think it all needs to go through the CEO. And in terms of the board of directors, I think it's important that all of us individually have the opportunity to speak with Josh if we have questions or concerns regarding an item. My life experiences have taught me through working with a number of attorneys that they would much rather have you ask the question before you take some action rather than trying to fix it after you've taken an action and a problem has arisen. So I think it's excellent, and I support the recommendation, but I do think that each of us as board members individually need to have the opportunity to contact Josh and seek his counsel and advice on a matter that obviously relates to the district.
Absolutely, Director LaBelle, I completely agree. And the motion, if one is made, would include that element. So the communications would just be limited to the CEO of the OC Fair and Event Center and then the board of directors.
Very good. Josh, do you have any comments?
No, I have no comments. I'll defer entirely to the board. This appears to be a policy decision, so long as once the board takes a vote, I'm provided with some guidance on what steps I would need to take in the event I am contacted by another member of the OC Fair staff other than Michelle, so that I'm also acting in accordance with the board's preference.
Josh, this is Ashley, Director Aiken. I have just a question. What is the policy for other fairs with which you are counsel for? And what is their limitation on who can contact you and direct you to incur legal fees?
Typically in the work I do for other DAAs, including San Diego and some smaller DAAs, I typically interact on a staff level with a CEO and then any other executive level employees or department heads. For example, if there's a chief operations executive or a contract executive, a lot of DAs have a manager of a contracting department. And so, for example, with other DAAs, if there is a contract-specific issue or concern, it's not uncommon for the contracts manager to reach out to me directly to give me a heads up, hey, Josh, we're having this contract issue. I've asked employee Smith to reach out to you. She's more informed on the facts on the ground, so expect some sort of email or telephone call from her. So usually that initial contact will come from an executive level employee, and then in the event that executive level employee wants me to interact directly with a rank and file employee, I'm provided with the guidance and the heads up to expect that question or email or telephone call. And then I typically, in my practice, when that happens, once we've resolved the issue and provide advice, the advice typically goes to the employee asking the question and always with a copy to that executive level member of the staff that made the initial request. And typically, again, each DAA is different, but in my experience with DAAs, including Orange County, executive level staff are usually very efficient and good at keeping the board in the loop, given the constraints of Bagley-Keene. So whether that's keeping the chair and vice chair in the loop on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and then advising the entire board during meetings. So that's been my experience.
Chair Cervantes, this is Director Bonnery. The question I have is, has something changed, has something happened that required this to be brought to the board? Even though I'm not opposed to what you're bringing, just curious what happened that it's being brought at this time.
This is Director Cervantes. As we review and examine things, there's a lot of safeguards that need to be placed, and that's what we have been doing.
This is Director Aiken. I would like Michelle, our CEO Richards, to weigh in because I don't want to make this where it's just increasing her workload in order to, anytime there's a procurement contract, an HR issue, that we have to trace down Michelle. I'll front load my thoughts in that I do support having someone from the board overlook the legal fees and expenses. It is something that used to occur when we had private counsel, when we did not have the AG's office, and kind of fell off the radar once we went back with the AG's office. So I think it would be a good idea to reinstitute that as a practice. But I am a bit concerned that we are limiting it too much to just the CEO, because I think it just seems to me that it might create an incredible amount of paperwork, for lack of a better term, for Michelle. So I would like to explore whether we should expand that. And then I would like to get Josh to weigh in, if he can, just in his experience, if there is somebody, gosh forbid, that needs to make some type of a whistleblower complaint or has some type of private complaint, what is a good safeguard we can set up so that they have the ability to ask
whether an action is legal or illegal going forward.
So this is Michelle. Maybe I'll start off.
Director Cervantes. I just wanted to clarify that Josh would not be the person to reach for a whistleblower complaint. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes, Ashley, if I understand your question, if a staff member in Orange County were to bring a whistleblower complaint and have specific questions, those are not directed to me. I have never received an employee complaint brought to me as attorney for the Fair Board. Typically, those employees will go through the district's HR department or some other internal process, or they may even go through Cal HR. But those calls or requests or concerns do not come to our office, and my role is counsel for the 32nd DAA.
And this is Michelle. To answer the first part of your question, Director Aitken, I first of all, I support this. I think it's important to put some parameters on how staff communicates with the AG's office. But I agree with you that it could create, a bit of an issue if there's a lot of activity. So I might suggest that maybe we proceed with limiting communication through the CEO and with the board as individuals. But what I can do on my end in working with staff to help streamline things a little bit is require that if staff does need to reach out to the AG's office on, say, a contract question or an HR-related question, that I be in the loop on that prior to calling the AG's office so that I can send Josh an email letting him know that I'm aware of the issue and have authorized that that particular department head to be in touch with him individually.
So, Michelle, this is Natalie. Oh, sorry, Director Rubakava. So what I'm hearing you say is that you would initiate the conversation. So because you're the CEO, everything starts and stops with you.
That's right.
So if an employee would initiate the conversation with you, you would make the introduction or introduction emails related to the issue with Josh. But I think it would be important that you stay in that conversation line. So, whether you're copied on a communication from the AG's office back to the employee, I just think it's instrumental that you're aware of what's going on all of the time. And, maybe in that case, there's also the board chair is copied on that email communication between the AG. I don't know, Josh, if there are issues with that, but it just concerns me that, we might be giving too many people access to the AG's office. I'm glad Ashley asked the question about a whistleblower complaint, and we are already aware that Josh is not the office or the individual who would manage that. It would start with HR and Bianca, and then it would escalate from there if there was really a concern. But I just think it's important to, make sure that we're streamlining communication with the AG's office in order to protect the fairgrounds.
I think that would be...
Thank you, Director Rubakava Garcia.
Yeah,
this is Director Cervantes, and I have a quick comment. I believe that the simplicity is that Josh is our attorney, and we have one employee. So we can always assess at a later time if anything else needs to change. But at this time, if our CEO is the only person that has access to our attorney, I am very comfortable with that.
Chair Cervantes, are there any public speakers on this? Are there any requests for comment on this?
We do not. We don't have any public comment speakers on this subject.
Well, based upon Michelle's comments that she could administratively develop a streamlining procedure that she's in the loop, and obviously individual staff members have questions on contracts or personnel, as long as she's in the loop and can keep, make Josh aware of the fact that she's aware of the request. And I do agree we have one employee, and I think in terms of managing our contract with our legal counsel with Josh, that it be limited to the CEO, and then individual board of director members should always have the ability to contact Josh if they have a question or a concern for his legal counsel to individual board members and the board as a whole. So with that, I would approve would move that we move forward with the recommendation as outlined by Vice Chair Rubalcaba, and that would be my motion.
Director Reese, I second that motion.
Okay, this is Director Cervantes. I maybe add to send this to the governance for a formal policy in addition to the governance committee.
If the second would agree to that, I would agree then to add that to my motion, that it be forwarded to the governance committee.
Yeah, I can agree to that amendment. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
And I would make that amendment.
Thank you. Director LaBelle. Summer, will you please call for a vote?
Yes. Just to note for the record, Director Bonner-Reese has left the meeting. She had a work commitment, so she is no longer on the line. I will call the roll vote. Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia?
Yes.
Director Ruiz?
Yes.
Director Aiken?
Yes.
Director LaBelle?
Yes.
And Director Pham?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we go to Board of Directors Matters of Information. We have added another Board of Directors meeting that will be held on Monday, April 27th at 9 a.m. And that will be, our regular scheduled meeting will be May 28th, 2020. And I will go ahead and start with Director Rubalcaba Garcia with any comments.
Thank you. I have nothing to add. I just hope everybody is well and thriving in isolation. And I want to thank the fair staff for doing such a great job, and specifically Michelle and Ken for, leading the charge there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Robert Reese.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to Michelle and staff for working with the county clerk recorder and making that such a great success. Not only did they have 10,000 calls, but they had people driving in from Vegas to get married here in Orange County. So I wanted to, again, thank Michelle, the staff, for making it happen. And Michelle, thank you again for the great work. Keep it up, you and your staff. And I hope to see everyone again soon. Like Speaker Pallmeyer said, when that's going to be, none of us know, but I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. And hope everyone stays safe and healthy out there. Thank you.
Director Aiken.
Yes, just want to hope everyone's families are safe and everyone is doing the best they can under these circumstances. Thank you to the staff for all the hard work and being incredibly flexible as we deal with this day to day. And I really look forward to the time where we get to see each other in person.
Thank you. Director LaBelle?
Yes, ditto to all the comments that have been made by the other directors. I do want to Also, thank staff very much for their attendance to all of these issues and to keeping us informed. I know it is very difficult times out there for literally everybody, and I just want to make sure everybody stays safe and stay well, and look forward to seeing everybody hopefully in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Director Pham?
Yes, echo everyone's comments. Hope everyone's staying safe and, all family members are healthy. Appreciate staff as well. Thanks.
And I would like to thank the members of the public. I thank you for your participation, and I thank you for your support. We value you. And I thank our CEO, Michelle, and staff for their hard work and their great job. And I hope that all of you and your families are safe during this pandemic. And I hope everybody can join us on Monday for our next board meeting. This meeting is now adjourned.